And good morning.
Good morning indeed.
How you doing?
Man, I'm rolling, Wyatt. I am rolling.
Indeed. All right, so this morning we're going to do a little courthouse roundup. We're going to talk about a couple of cases, and let me tell you...
Hey, I miss it being Total Win Thursday so much.
Oh, God, me too.
I wasn't tired enough of winning yet.
I know. I didn't get tired of winning. I wanted to win more.
Right.
I wanted to be able to feed my children and put gas in my car. But now gas is expensive and there's no food on the shelves. Let's go, Brandon. Let's go.
Yeah.
No, really. Let's go.
All right. But it is what it is.
Courtroom drama.
Yeah, the show must go on.
So before we get into, we're going to talk about three cases. We're going to talk about Rittenhouse, Smollett, and the McMicheals. And part of this conversation is going to have to do with legitimate systemic racism. So there's reason to be concerned for Kyle and for the McMicheals. There really is.
Yeah, namely that they can't get a fair trial.
Correct. And so I want to take us back for just a moment to Dereck Chauvin's trial. This was an obvious and intense miscarriage of justice. George Floyd was a multiple repeat offending, violent, woman-abusing drug addict who attacked the police. George Floyd was not killed by police officers. He certainly wasn't murdered by police officers. George Floyd committed suicide by cop. And he had been trying to do it for years.
I mean, you could say he died from he died from a lifelong case of PLD, poor life decisions.
Yeah. Apparently COVID killed him.
Yeah, apparently.
Well, I mean, he had COVID.
Yeah. And
that equals cause of death.
I know.
Always and everywhere.
I'm tracking.
Even in suicides and motorcycle accidents.
No, I'm tracking.
Okay.
That COVID's a sumbitch. COVID is so powerful that even though an 80-year-old man had blood cancer, COVID was still powerful enough to kill him.
Right. And even though a 16-year-old boy had a 16-year-old Canadian had stage 4 brain cancer, COVID was totally his cause of death.
YouTube, these are jokes. We are not disseminating medical advice or information or disinformation or misinformation or whatever you want to call it. These are the jokes. Tip your bartender, okay? Okay.
And if you'd like to throw us off for medical misinformation over the statements that I've just made, I can corroborate all of them with active record evidence, and you are committing fraud. Which, by the way, private platform or not, is a crime. That's right, YouTube. You're an organized crime syndicate committing crimes against the nation in violation, at a minimum, of US 18242. Thank you, tip your bartender. So, the Floyd case was an obvious case of a criminal getting himself killed by just fighting the cops until he lost that fight. And one need look no further than the judge's statements in denying a petition to change of venue. The judge said he denied the change of venue because in that state there was nowhere that you would be able to find an unbiased jury and expect a fair trial. Your Honor, this is not a complicated question. There is a Constitution. It guarantees the right to a fair trial. If you are convinced as a judge whose job it is to uphold and defend the Constitution that a fair trial cannot be had, then a trial cannot be had. This is not an opinion. This is the law. You should hang up your robe and go home.
Yes.
Because you are an inadequate representation of your profession. You are not a man.
However, in good news, it's looking like and let's just lead off with Rittenhouse. It's looking like he's gonna get a fair trial.
A fairer trial.
A fairer trial. Yeah, that's what I was going for. Now, I'm still fairly black-pilled about the Kyle Rittenhouse situation.
Well, thankfully, all the pedophiles that Kyle shot were white, so you won't have the usual suspects sticking their dick in the pudding.
Right. I've been fairly black-pilled about the Rittenhouse situation just because of the narrative that surrounds what happened and the absence of facts and shit, like, you know, how he tried to turn himself in, and like, how many versions of this story have you seen passed around Facebook or Twitter that don't include the burning dumpster, which the bad guys were using to, like, disrupt police activity? All right, let's not forget.
No. Hold on a minute. The bad guys were not using the dumpster to disrupt police activity. It is intensely and clearly obvious from the video and statements made by witnesses at the scene that the bad guys were using a dumpster which was on fire to push into a gas station in hopes to ignite the gas tanks.
I promise, I was getting there, buddy.
Okay.
All right. Sometimes you could let me finish. It's okay. I won't hurt you. I won't hurt you. I promise. Show me on the doll where the words hurt you. Anyhow. But yeah, they leave out the whole thing with the flaming dumpster and the gas station and the fact that the rioters were attempting to cause property damage and obstruction of justice and all that. All that gets left out. You just hear, you know, psychotic white kid shoots up a bunch of, you know, Antifa protesters or whatever.
Jamie, when he started patting me on the shoulder, I suddenly had this intense desire to just punch him straight in the side of the head so hard that it flipped him off his chair. And then it occurred to me that all you fuckers watching right now would send me an invoice for the laptops you just spit your coffee into.
It's like in Avengers when Hulk just lays Thor out, just thud. Okay, so, anyhow, but Rittenhouse seems to, and we've been covering this one pretty closely because I'm not even going to comment. Like, that is, we just showed that on our show. We just showed that on our show. Okay. All right. So you can potty train cats. Okay. There are rails, and I am going to find them.
I doubt it. What are you doing to me, New York Post?
Okay, so for anybody listening and not watching, we have a New York Post article pulled up for reference, and there's a video playing on mute at the top of it, and the video that just played as part of the loop of videos showed a cat using a human toilet complete with cute captions and everything, and it just was a thing. Anyhow, so there are rails, and I'm now back on them. Kyle Rittenhouse, okay, a story we've been following, cause we've referred to him as the Kenosha hat trick kid, allegedly. That's been some things.
Well, he's the Kenosha kid, so named for his Kenosha hat trick.
Right.
For anybody who's not following, the Kenosha hat trick is when you shoot 3 people at random in a leftist mob, and they all happen to be pedophiles. I'm sorry. In fairness, only one of them, I think only one of them was that. The other 2 were different categories of sexual assailant criminals. But they were all basically rapists.
Yeah, basically, he was 2020's fuck around and find out champion. Right? I think that's pretty clear.
Science!
But we've been continuing to follow the story for obvious reasons related to Firearms Friday and the larger culture war and all that. And Rittenhouse keeps getting these minor victories handed to him despite everything being stacked against him that could possibly be stacked against him. You know, in the court of public opinion, there's a segment of the population that's convinced that he's guilty. The same way they were convinced that, for example, say Kavanaugh was guilty.
Right.
It was convinced Dereck Chauvin was guilty, that's already convinced that the McMicheals are guilty, and I'm not trying to divert, just bringing them up. Yeah, I know.
They just keep with the cute animal videos. I'm just...
No, I don't want to watch an animal take a shit. That's never cute. Thanks. And it's still down there in the corner. Oh, but we're covering it up. Haha. Fantastic. So in this case...
That makes it worse because now they can't see it and still might get us.
No, it's fine. So in this case,
Solved.
The latest piece of good news to come out of the Rittenhouse situation is that the people that he shot cannot be referred to as victims, but can be referred to as rioters and arsonists. And Chris brought something to my attention this morning when we were doing show prep. Apparently, the you know what? Just say what did the DA try and argue?
Okay. It hopefully it's got the exact quote in the article here. The defense has already made clear that it intends to argue that Rosenbaum, the first of the three to be shot, posed a danger, claiming he threatened to kill people and was seen starting fires. The behavior of many people there was lawless, defense attorney Mark Richards told the court. Mr. Rosenbaum was at the top of that list. Another member of the defense team, Charafisi, stressed that if Rosenbaum is the aggressor, it goes directly to the issue of whether the jury would believe Rittenhouse's actions were reasonable. The word victim is a loaded word, Schroeder told the court, and Schroeder is the judge.
To be fair, rioter is also a loaded term. This is...
It is, but it's the distinction is sufficiently tolerable when rioter is a correct word.
Oh, I'm not saying that it's the incorrect verbiage to use, but when you're going into any type of major criminal proceeding like this, basically all the words are loaded. You know, part of what you're paying a lawyer for is to go do all that boring book stuff, but you're also paying the lawyer to know which loaded word to use when and where, because that's just a thing. That's a fact. Go listen to some YouTube videos about how lawyers deliberately play with your emotions. Like, it's part of what you pay them for.
And like, we were talking about the word homicide a bit last night too. Like, it's perfectly reasonable to call what Kyle did a triple homicide. A man killed 3 men.
Right.
But homicide
does not mean murder.
Is not murder.
Nope.
There are many circumstances over which a man can kill another man, and no reasonable person would say that he was wrong to do it. Right? And in this case, no reasonable, intelligent person can say that Kyle was wrong to kill the first man that tried to murder him, the second man that tried to murder him with a skateboard, or the third... I'm sorry, let me back up. The first rapist that tried to murder him with a flaming dumpster, or the second rapist that tried to murder him with a skateboard, or the third rapist who tried to murder him with a 9mm pistol. Let's go, Brandon. Let's go, Brandon. I'll give you a bump there, buddy. And we don't have it set up as a podcast yet because I'm cheap. Actually, it's because I don't want to take the time to rip the audio off and then repost it. Yeah, it's a whole thing.
I was about to say, you are many things, sir, but cheap is not one of them.
So it's perfectly reasonable to say that it was triple homicide. But these monsters, I speak of the prosecution, these criminals, and I say that advisedly, want to call him a murderer. And here's why I say it advisedly. There is no reasonable court that can reasonably expect to secure a conviction on the charge of murder in the case of a young man who in the middle of a riot in which other killings were committed by the rioters who were engaged in acts of assault and arson and burglary and looting as well, all simultaneously.
Basically all the felonies. Like, literally all the felonies.
Right. A bunch of rapists got together to burn down a city and decided to kill some people in the process. And Kyle Rittenhouse decided that he did not want to be killed by a bunch of raping, looting Arsonists.
But look, just
rioters.
Right.
Arsonists.
Rioters, arson. And look, just to put a button on it, this is good news for Kyle, because when it goes to a jury and the fact that they can be referred to correctly as rioters, Kyle Rittenhouse shot 3 victims versus Kyle Rittenhouse shot 3 rioters. Those are 2 completely different things.
Well, try this sentence on for size. Kyle Rittenhouse killed 3 victims in self-defense.
That is a mouthful. But you know how the left is
That
with the language.
feeling right there, that's what we call cognitive dissonance.
No, that's when something's so stupid it puts me one step closer to a brain tumor just thinking about it. That's what that is, okay?
How do you diagram that sentence? So you take a pencil and a piece of paper, you sharpen it, you stick it in your fucking eye.
Right. So anyhow, but this is good news, because when it goes to the jury, those are just 2 different things. And look, the left would say some shit like self-defense against the victims or whatever. They would do that just to muddy the pool. So can we move on to Jussie Smollett?
Let's move on to Jussie Smollett. Jussie Smollett, criminal trial to move forward after judge denies to dismiss case. I got some mixed feelings on this one.
I have some mixed feelings on it too. Let me just give the quick summary. So, Jussie Smollett claimed to be attacked by magateers at 2:00 in the morning in Chicago, that he had bleach thrown on him, that he was beat up, that they tied a noose around his neck. And even though the evidence has not yet come out in court, it looks pretty damn clear that this was a fake hate crime.
Right. Basically, if you wanted to write a fake hate crime that was the most unbelievably obvious lie you could possibly imagine, that's what he asked us to believe.
Yeah, because it's totally MAGA country in Chicago.
Yeah.
Right? Like, just for starters. And then
you got a lot of Republican voters with thick Nigerian accents.
Yes. And we all walk around with bleach, didn't you know?
We all hire our criminals with checks.
That one thing. What were you thinking, my dude?
Never in cash. Always in cash, never in writing. Right? Deny everything. Admit nothing, make counter accusations, always in cash, never in writing.
So anyhow, flash forward. Smollett got a sweetheart deal. Basically, the defense would decline to prosecute if he would forfeit his bond, which was $10,000, do community service, whatever, and then it just wouldn't go to trial. And we talked about it on the show at this time at the time that, this is bullshit. How does he get such a sweetheart deal? But he got the deal. It's
easy. He checks all the boxes.
Well, yes, I know, but I mean, realistically speaking, how he could get such, I don't even have a problem with him getting a deal, but it's the fact that he got one that's so, like, people get deals all the time from the district attorney. It's part of how our legal system works, both for the good and the ill of all of us and you and everybody in America. And then this funny thing happened where and then this funny thing happened where a special prosecutor was appointed to go back over the case. Right? Where a special prosecutor was appointed to go back over the case, and now Smollett is going to be brought into court and tried on like 5 counts of, I think, disorderly conduct, I think is what it is. I mean, and fine, whatever.
Yeah. So basically, he shouldn't have gotten a deal, but he did get a deal, and the deal should be honored.
And here's the thing, okay? The particular nature of his deal, most of the time to get a deal, you have to plead guilty, right? And throw yourself at the mercy of the court. That's how getting a deal works. Smollett's deal, he's maintained his innocence the entire time, right? Anybody, and I do mean basically anybody would have taken the deal that Smollett got.
Absolutely, because if
the
you
deal
believe
included.
if you believe Smollett is not guilty, then you're probably still on board for OJ.
Well, no. I don't just mean whether or not he's guilty or innocent or whatever. I mean, I think that he is. Let me be clear. But I mean, anybody in almost any circumstances would have taken Smollett's deal because it doesn't go to court and you get to maintain your innocence. And here's this really, really, really fascinating thing about going to court. If you don't go to court, like with the previous story with Kyle Rittenhouse, it's impossible to get convicted. So I could even see a world where, let's say you are innocent, okay? 100% innocent. I mean, clean as the wind-driven snow, okay? And you get accused of something, and your lawyer comes to you and says, okay, the DA says if you will X, Y, and Z, they will drop the charges. Your lawyer is going to tell you, you should just X, Y, and Z and let the DA drop the charges. So Smollett entered into this deal in good faith, and this one is important. I feel like this is one of those that actually tests how much you actually believe in your principles. It's easy to say that somebody that you agree with, that you find agreeable, should get equal treatment under the law and all of that good stuff. But as soon as somebody that you think is a piece of shit should get those same rights and privileges, are you still willing to extend what I'm not looking at?
Ignore it.
Okay,
I'm dealing with tit and cat.
Okay, they can't see the comments. I see. Okay, all right. Anyhow,
they can see the comments.
No, they're at the top. I see there. Okay. All right, I am tracking. Anyhow, your lawyer would tell you to take that deal. They would. Even if you went back to your lawyer and said, but hey, I'm innocent. And your lawyer would go, good for you. If you do X, Y, and Z, the DA is going to decline to prosecute.
Water wax. All right.
If there's any charges that should be brought against anybody in this situation, and this is where I think I ultimately land on this, they should actually be brought against the DA. Because if the deal is so corrupt and so awful that somebody else has to swoop in and go, well hold on now. You should not have done that. This person should still stand trial. And I think it should work kind of like the way felony murder works, only, and maybe not exactly, that's not the best comparison, but I think it should work like this, okay? If Smollett is going to be charged with these multiple instances of disorderly conduct, so should the DA. Because the DA...
Absolutely.
Sort of like how if you falsely accuse somebody of rape, you should get the sentence of rape. Well, if you're going to be a corrupt district attorney...
So... Let me bring this back a bit. And let's take a look at some famous cases. Okay, like in the Chauvin case, it was not reasonable to charge Chauvin to begin with, right? Forget about the fact that it was an obvious miscarriage of justice in the trial when the judge should clearly have declared a mistrial as soon as he was unable to accommodate a change of venue request based on the inability of the locality to provide an unbiased jury. The absence of the ability for Chauvin to get a fair trial should have vitiated the idea of him going on trial to begin with. Forget that for a moment. He should never have been charged. So we're going to get to the McMicheals in just a second, but I want to back up a little bit to the white Cuban. Remember Zimmerman?
Oh, the white Mexican.
White Latino, whatever, white Hispanic. That's it. He was suddenly a white Hispanic because, well, he was Hispanic and they needed white supremacists for the narrative. And in that case, the DA refused to prosecute because it was such an obvious, clear-cut case of self-defense, as the jury found in the trial. And then they fired the prosecutor and brought in one of Eric Holder's buddies who said, hell yeah, I'll hang a white boy if it gets me a great job for blah, 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 blah. And that's what happened, right? And they proceeded to a trial where there was no reasonable expectation that a conviction could be secured. Then you fast forward to the case of the McMicheals. Several prosecutors refused to bring charges because this is such a clear-cut case of self-defense.
Yeah, but they're in deep shit, man. Because
they're in deep shit because Brian Kemp, the GBI, and they finally found a black female prosecutor that said, hell yeah, I want to hang me a white boy, got involved in a case where they had no business, because this is not a case of murder. This headline, murder, men in, right, it doesn't say in the, it says jury selection begins in trial of 3 Georgia men in murder of Ahmaud Arbery. It doesn't say
homicide.
Hang on. It doesn't say in the murder case. This headline presupposes guilt going into a trial. They are presupposed to be guilty by the narrative. And to be very clear, what happened with these men is several prosecutors looked at the case and said, no, there is not a reasonable expectation that you can secure a conviction on the charge of murder in a case where a criminal caught in criminal activity with an attempt at a citizen's arrest by 2 law enforcement affiliates perfectly within the law. The criminal attacked them and took control of one of their firearms, and it got him dead. This is a clear case of self-defense.
And he never got control of the firearm. I think that's fair to point out.
He had his hands on it.
I'm making the joke, dipshit.
Well, in fairness. Okay, in fairness, he thought he had, but he attempted to take control of the firearm. He put his hands on an armed man's gun. Guys, that's a bad idea.
That's not a good look, as the kids would say.
Yeah, that's not the one you want. It didn't work out for him. So in this case, like this one's shaping up to be the opposite of the situation we're seeing with the Rittenhouse case. In this case, Arbery has a significant history, not of just committing crimes, but explicitly his record MO is exactly the crime that he was being accused of in the case of this attempted citizen's arrest. His MO has been to dress like he's jogging, use that as his cover while he's casing houses, and then rob houses and use the cover of, well, I'm out jogging, to try and get away. And he's been arrested on that multiple times, and the judge has said that cannot be admitted as evidence to support the case of self-defense. This judge in this case is already bent on hanging these men. This judge should be disbarred and taken off the bench immediately, as should the DA that chose to prosecute this. Because when 1% of the DAs that have looked at this have said, yeah, I'll hang a white boy because demographically it suits me, right? So what happened here is every time a DA, a prosecutor said there is no clear chance that you can secure a reasonable conviction in this case, a mob, a racist Black Lives Matter mob of violent terrorist thugs with a history of arson, burglary, looting, and murder threatened the community where that prosecutor lived until the prosecutor recused himself entirely, so that another prosecutor would be given the opportunity to miscarry justice on behalf of the mob until they found one that was either capitulant to their demands or, as is the case, the actual case, what they did find, someone who is complicit with their activity.
So we're at the time, but I do want to say, like, the McMicheals, and I always forget the third dude's name. Whatever. They're still in the jury selection phase. We're just not getting as much news about it as yet. And it's because the judge has ordered some very specific, like, you're only allowed to have like one print reporter in the courtroom, basically for the duration of the trial. So all the information that we're getting is quotes from this one reporter. But I think they're fucked for two reasons. And I think that these three guys might be good and well proper fucked, as it were.
Yes, because BLM has decided that should be the case.
Okay, but here are my reasons. Okay, one is actually what you just described. If they cannot bring into evidence the fact that Arbery had a history of home invasion, robbery, trespassing, all of that, it is one thing to say that these three guys killed this dude who looked like he might be in the process of committing another crime that he has a history of committing. All right. Again, that's your emotional manipulation, right? As opposed to saying, oh, well, he was out jogging and these three racist assholes just decided he was a criminal. Again, it's your emotional manipulation. And speaking of emotional manipulation, here's the main reason I think these guys are fucked. And it's the fact that the video was passed all over social media. Chris and I do video. We enjoy it, okay? We have a real passion for it, and there's magical things you can do with cinema. Believe it or not, the communists, wasn't it Lenin who said that the cinema was the highest form of art and the communists should adopt it because basically you could hit people with every emotional punch? I forget the exact quote, but the commies love cinema.
Real quick. WW Mountain. They killed a dude that was potentially committing a crime. You can't do that. False.
You can in self-defense.
They did not kill a dude who was potentially committing a crime. They attempted to arrest a dude who was potentially committing a crime. Understand that citizens have the same arrest powers and authorities as the police, with the exception of the enforcement of traffic laws and the actual incarceration. You secure the criminal, assuming probable cause, direct knowledge, or immediate proximity to the activity, to the criminal activity, and call the police, who will then deal with the incarceration question. They attempted an arrest, and in the course of that attempted citizen's arrest, Arbery assaulted them and grabbed one of the guns. At that point, he was in the commission of a crime. Now, we've likened this, importantly, to a situation where somebody's robbing a convenience store, right, and draws a weapon and kills the clerk and then tries to argue self-defense in court. No. You were robbing the liquor store when the clerk drew his weapon to defend himself from the crime you were already committing. So you, as the criminal committing the initial crime, do not get to claim self-defense as an affirmative defense for your criminal activity. So as soon as Arbery, having been in the course of committing a crime which is documented, recorded, and proved, was in the throes of being arrested by citizens with the absolute legal authority to do so, then Arbery chose to commit an additional felony assault and robbery by attempting to take the weapon away from the armed man who was lawfully arresting him. Arbery was continuing a crime in which he was already engaged and bringing attempted lethal force to bear on a man who was prepared to defend himself. Arbery does not have a defense claim to justify his activities, ergo the McMicheals do. They're analogous in this situation to the shop owner who was being victimized by a criminal and defended himself. But I guarantee you this, if Arbery had gotten his hands on that gun and killed the McMicheals,
we'd be having a totally different conversation. That's
completely different conversation, because the DNC and the BLM would be absolutely behind him. They would be more in support of him than an innocent black man who had done the same thing, because they prefer monsters. All your martyrs are monsters.
So, anyhow, we're West Virginia Mountain. Come back tomorrow. We wish you'd showed up sooner. We'd love to play with you, and I mean that like sincerely, not as an insult. We don't mind dissent. But and we're long, but I just want to really just hammer this home. The people that think the McMicheals are guilty, they think the McMicheals are guilty because of the video. And that is ridiculously important because of how manipulative video is. As soon as I saw that video, I understood.
Oh, yeah.
I understood immediately, okay, where's the rest of what I didn't see?
Right. We're in a production studio right now. There is a giant working and editing bay here and a slightly smaller one right over there. Guys, let me tell you something. I can make your wedding vows into a ransom note. And nobody will doubt their authenticity.
And that's not a joke. Like, Chris and I filmed a wedding last weekend that...
needed lights.
It needed lights, yes. But 99% of the footage we filmed is not going to go in their final product.
Right.
Okay? And that's important. So the next of these videos that you see get passed around, try not to jump to conclusions. Okay? Because there's this thing, selective editing, I would argue, is the most powerful in the video format. There's just something about the way the emotion of it hits you. But holy shit, we're long.
Yep. Y'all be safe out there. Tomorrow's Firearms Friday.
Yeah!
Yeah! Ah!
Whoa. Dude, headphone warning, man.
I look that way. Ah!
Okay, and I guess we're just gonna have to update some stuff with Alec Baldwin. Hey, good thing Polytech, our buddies over at Polytech, are doing a show on it tonight. They're gonna do our show notes for us.
I might have to call and help him out. Y'all look for me tonight, Danny and Alex. I'll try to be available. No promises. I got some shit going on, though.
Right.
Y'all, I dealt with 2 separate clients yesterday. It was awesome.
All right. I'm good.
I'm good?
Yep.
All right.
Push the fucking button!
Are you sure?
Dude, stop.